I thought I was helping my mother organize her paperwork for tax season when I stumbled across the document that shattered everything I believed about family. There it was in black and white legal text, her last will and testament. Every single asset, every piece of property, every dollar of her $800,000 estate was going to my brother Tyler, not a penny for me. The handwritten note attached made my blood freeze. Sons carry the family legacy forward. Daughters find their own way through marriage. 35 years of sacrifice, of putting her needs before mine, of paying her bills, while Tyler lived rent-free in her basement. None of it mattered. The discovery hit me like a freight train, but as I sat in my mother's kitchen staring at those legal documents, the memories came flooding back with painful clarity. I was 22 when Dad died of a heart attack, and Mom's world fell apart. I had been 3 semesters away from finishing my nursing degree at the local community college, working part-time at a medical clinic, and dreaming of becoming a pediatric nurse. Cassandra, I need you. Mom had sobbed into my shoulder at Dad's funeral. I can't do this alone. The house, the bills, everything. Tyler's just a kid. He needs stability. Tyler was 18 then, hardly a child, but I dropped everything. I withdrew from school, took a full-time position at a medical billing company, and moved back into my childhood bedroom. Mom had convinced me it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet, financially and emotionally. That was 13 years ago. Since then, I had watched Tyler coast through life without consequence. He had been fired from his job at the auto parts store for showing up drunk, then from the restaurant for stealing tips, then from the construction company for not showing up at all. 6 jobs in 10 years, and each time Mom made excuses. He's going through a rough patch, she would say, sliding another $20 bill across the kitchen table to him. Young men need time to find themselves. Meanwhile, I worked double shifts to cover the mortgage payments when Mom's part-time receptionist salary at the dental office wasn't enough. I paid the utilities when the disconnect notices arrived. I bought groceries when the refrigerator sat empty because Mom had given Tyler her last $50 for gas money he never used for job hunting. The pattern was so normalized, I hadn't even questioned it anymore. When Tyler crashed Mom's Honda Civic into a telephone pole last spring because he was texting while driving, I co-signed for her car loan replacement. When he brought his unemployed friends over to drink beer and play video games until 3 in the morning, disrupting Mom's sleep before her early morning shifts, I said nothing. But seeing that will changed everything. All those years of putting my life on hold, of watching opportunities slip away, of telling myself I was being a good daughter while Tyler received unconditional love and financial support for doing absolutely nothing. I confronted Mom that evening when Tyler was out with his latest girlfriend. "How could you do this?" I asked, placing the will on the kitchen table between us. "How could you leave everything to him when I'm the one who has taken care of you all these years?" Mom's face went pale, then defensive. "You weren't supposed to find that, and Tyler is going to need help getting on his feet. You're stronger, Cassandra. You'll be fine." "He's 28 years old, Mom. When exactly is he going to get on his feet?" "That's enough," she snapped. "Family takes care of family. I raised you better than to be so selfish." The hypocrisy was staggering. I was about to respond when I noticed something that made my stomach drop. Mom's checkbook was lying open on the counter, and the latest entries caught my eye. 3 checks made out to Tyler in the past 2 weeks each for different amounts. $150, $220, $310. "Mom, what are these checks for?" She tried to close the checkbook, but I was faster. As I flipped through the recent pages, a pattern emerged that made me sick. Check after check made out to Tyler, sometimes 2 or 3 per week, amounts ranging from $50 to $400. The memo lines were vague. Expenses, emergency, car repair. "Mom, this is over $2,000 just this month." "What emergencies?" Her silence told me everything. When Tyler walked through the front door an hour later, I was waiting for him with the checkbook in my hand. "What's this about, Ty?" I asked, showing him the evidence. His reaction was exactly what I expected. No shame, no apology, just irritation at being caught. "It's not your business, Cassie. Mom and I have an understanding." An understanding. "You mean she gives you money, and you do what exactly in return?" "I take care of things around here. Man of the house stuff." I looked around the kitchen. With its leaking faucet I had paid a plumber to fix last month, the loose cabinet door I had repaired myself with hardware store supplies, the new refrigerator I had purchased when the old one died. "What things exactly?" Tyler shrugged. "You wouldn't understand. It's different for guys." That night, I discovered the real bombshell. While organizing Mom's financial documents to understand the scope of Tyler's spending, I found bank statements she had hidden in her bedroom dresser. For the past 6 months, Tyler hadn't just been taking cash. He had been forging checks from her account. Small amounts at first, $20 or $30, but escalating to hundreds. The most disturbing part was a note in Mom's handwriting. Paper clipped to the statements, "Talk to Tyler about the checks. He promises to pay back when he gets steady work. Boys just need more time to mature." She knew. She had known for months that he was stealing from her, and she was covering for him. The realization that my mother would excuse theft from her own bank account while guilting me for not contributing enough money was a betrayal deeper than the will itself. The weight of the discovery pressed down on me as I drove home to my cramped studio apartment across town. The place I had been renting for the past 2 years since my marriage to David fell apart. Another casualty of my misplaced family loyalty. David had been patient for the first 3 years of our marriage. He understood that I helped my family financially. What he couldn't tolerate was the constant emergency phone calls that pulled me away from our dinner dates, our weekend plans, our anniversary vacation. The final straw came when I missed his company Christmas party because Tyler had gotten arrested for drunk driving and Mom needed me to help post bail. "It's like you're married to them, not me," David had said during our last fight. "There's no room in this relationship for me." He was right. I had chosen my family's dysfunction over my own happiness so many times that I couldn't even count them anymore. The divorce was finalized 18 months ago, and David was now engaged to a woman who probably didn't have to budget for her brother's gambling debts or her mother's inability to say no to a grown man throwing tantrums. My career had suffered too. Last year, I was up for a promotion to office manager at the medical billing company where I had worked for 13 years. The position came with a salary increase of $12,000 annually and better benefits. I had been the obvious choice until Tyler's crisis intervention became a pattern that affected my work performance. The final interview was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in November. The night before, Tyler had called crying because his latest girlfriend, Sarah, discovered he had been stealing money from her purse and kicked him out of her apartment. Mom was frantic, begging me to come over and help find him somewhere to stay. I missed the interview. The promotion went to someone with half my experience, but without family drama interfering with their professional commitments. My supervisor was sympathetic but firm. "Cassandra, you're excellent at your job, but reliability means being present when we need you." The worst part was how invisible my sacrifices had become to everyone, including the people who benefited from them. Mom's church friends constantly gushed about Tyler during coffee hour after Sunday services. "Oh, your Tyler is such a good boy," Mrs. Henderson from the choir would say. "Your mother tells us how he takes care of the household finances and helps with all the maintenance. What a blessing to have a son so devoted to his mother." I would stand there still wearing my work uniform because I had driven straight from my Saturday shift to pick Mom up for church, listening to praise for accomplishments that belonged to me. Mom never corrected these misperceptions. In her version of events, Tyler was the responsible child keeping the family together. The financial reality was starkly different. I had calculated it precisely because I needed to understand the scope of what I was dealing with. Every month for the past 13 years, I had contributed an average of $2,300 toward mom's household expenses, mortgage payments of $850, utilities averaging $320, grocery bills of $400, car insurance, medical, copays, home repairs, emergency expenses. The total over 13 years was approximately $150,000 of my income that had gone directly to supporting a household where Tyler lived rent-free while contributing nothing. Meanwhile, Tyler's monthly expenses consisted of his cell phone bill, which Mom paid, and spending money for entertainment, which Mom provided. His contributions to household maintenance involved occasionally taking out the trash and mowing the lawn every few weeks during summer months. But this discovery of the forged checks represented a new level of exploitation that I couldn't rationalize away. Tyler wasn't just failing to contribute to the household, he was actively stealing from it, and Mom was enabling the theft while expecting me to compensate for the missing money. The breaking point came when I found the credit card statements hidden in Mom's bedroom closet. 3 different credit cards, all maxed out with a total balance of $15,000. The charges painted a clear picture: casino visits, online gambling sites, cash advances. Tyler's gambling addiction had escalated from occasional trips to the local casino into a serious financial threat to Mom's security. The most heartbreaking detail was the pattern of charges. They coincided perfectly with the weeks when I had given Mom extra money for unexpected expenses or emergency repairs. Every dollar I had contributed to help her during financial crises had been immediately gambled away by Tyler, who then needed more money to cover the losses. Mom had never mentioned Tyler's gambling problem. She had never asked for my help addressing it or finding him treatment. She had simply enabled it by covering his debts while guilt-tripping me into providing the money that funded his addiction. That night, I sat in my small apartment reviewing bank statements and credit card bills, finally seeing the complete picture of how my family operated. I was the family ATM machine expected to provide endless financial support without question, while Tyler was the beloved son whose mistakes required protection and excuses. The realization that I had spent 13 years of my life propping up a system designed to benefit everyone except me was devastating, but it was also liberating. For the first time, I could see clearly what needed to happen next. The next morning, I called my best friend Jenny, who worked as a family therapist at the county mental health center. We had been friends since high school, but our relationship had become strained over the years as she watched me sacrifice myself for my family's dysfunction. Jenny had tried to talk to me about boundaries and enabling behavior many times, but I had always defended my choices as family loyalty. Cass, I'm glad you finally called, she said when I explained what I had discovered. What you're describing is financial abuse. Your mother and brother have been exploiting you systematically for over a decade. But she's my mother, Jenny. She raised me, took care of me when I was young. Don't I owe her something? You've already paid whatever debt you might have owed many times over. At this point, you're not helping her. You're enabling her to avoid the consequences of her choices, which prevents her from learning better behaviors. Jenny explained how family systems could become structured around dysfunction, with each person playing a role that maintained the unhealthy patterns. I was the rescuer, constantly solving problems and providing resources. Mom was the victim, always in crisis and needing help. Tyler was the identified patient whose problems became the family's central focus and excuse for avoiding deeper issues. The crazy thing is, your mother probably believes Tyler needs more help because he's struggling more, Jenny said. She doesn't see that his struggles are largely consequences of being protected from responsibility his entire adult life. So what do I do? Just abandon her? You set boundaries. You stop participating in the dysfunction. That's not abandonment. That's forcing the system to change by refusing to play your assigned role. After talking with Jenny, I spent the weekend researching my options. I contacted a family law attorney about the will and learned that unless mom lacked mental capacity when she signed it, I had no legal recourse to challenge her decisions about her own property. But I did have control over my own choices. I could stop contributing money to a household budget that was being mismanaged. I could stop enabling Tyler's irresponsibility by removing the financial safety net that allowed him to avoid consequences. The emotional struggle was intense. Everything in my upbringing told me that good daughters took care of their mothers unconditionally, but the voice in my head that sounded exactly like my father kept repeating something he had said during his final hospital stay. "Cassie, I know I'm asking a lot when I tell you to take care of your mother," he had whispered during one of our last conversations, "but don't forget to take care of yourself too. A person can give so much that they lose themselves completely. Don't let that happen to you." I had forgotten that part of his advice. I had focused so completely on taking care of mom that I had indeed lost myself completely. The decision to confront the situation head-on came when I calculated exactly what continuing this pattern would cost me. Over the next 10 years, assuming the same level of financial support, I would contribute another $100,000 to prop up a household where Tyler lived rent-free and my mother enabled his destructive behavior. Meanwhile, I was 35 years old with minimal savings, no retirement fund, no property, and no prospects for the marriage and family I had always wanted. The nursing degree I had abandoned 13 years ago was still calling to me. Community colleges had evening and weekend programs for adult learners. I could finish my education and build a career that actually fulfilled me. But not while supporting two adults who refused to take responsibility for their own lives. On Sunday evening, I requested a family meeting. Tyler initially refused to participate, claiming he had plans with friends, but I made it clear that the conversation would happen with or without him and would directly affect his living situation. "What's this about?" Mom asked as we gathered in her living room. "It's about the will, the forged checks, the credit card debt, and the lies," I said calmly. "We need to discuss how this family is going to function going forward." Tyler immediately went on the offensive. "This is about money, isn't it? You're just jealous that mom trusts me more than you." "Tyler, you've been stealing from her bank account. That's not trust. That's theft." "I borrowed some money when I needed it. I was going to pay it back." "With what income? You haven't held a job in 8 months." The argument escalated quickly, with Tyler accusing me of being controlling and greedy while Mom tried to minimize the seriousness of the financial problems. But then, Mom revealed something that changed everything. "Stop fighting," she said, tears streaming down her face. "There's something else you both need to know. I've been diagnosed with early-stage dementia." The room went silent. Mom continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "I found out 8 months ago. The memory problems, the confusion about dates and bills, it's going to get worse. That's why I changed the will. Tyler needs to be prepared to handle everything when I can't anymore." My initial reaction was heartbreak and guilt. How could I abandon my mother when she was facing such a frightening diagnosis? But then the timeline hit me. 8 months ago was when the forged checks started. 8 months ago was when the credit card spending escalated. "Tyler, did you know about Mom's diagnosis?" I asked. His guilty expression told me everything. He had known about Mom's increasing vulnerability and had used it as an opportunity to manipulate her financially. The will changes, the increased money requests, the credit card debt, all of it had accelerated after Tyler learned Mom's cognitive abilities were declining. The realization that my brother had exploited our mother's medical condition for financial gain was the final straw. This wasn't family loyalty or misguided love. This was predatory behavior disguised as caretaking. "I can't do this anymore," I said, standing up from the couch. "I love you both, but I can't continue to participate in this dysfunction. Mom, I'm going to help you contact elder services and set up proper support systems for your medical condition. But I'm done enabling Tyler's exploitation of your illness and providing money that funds his gambling addiction. Tyler exploded. You're abandoning us when Mom needs help the most. What kind of daughter does that? The kind who recognizes that real help doesn't involve allowing theft and manipulation to continue unchecked, I replied. The kind who understands that love without respect isn't love at all. The following Monday morning, I began the systematic process of extracting myself from my family's financial dysfunction. 13 years of enmeshment couldn't be undone overnight, but I approached it with the same methodical attention to detail that had made me successful at my job. First, I canceled all automatic payments from my bank accounts to Mom's household expenses: the mortgage autopay, the utility transfers, the insurance premiums. Every recurring payment that had been draining my paycheck for over a decade was terminated with 30 days' notice to allow for transition planning. Next, I removed myself as an authorized user from Mom's credit cards and bank accounts. The access I had maintained to help with her financial management had become a trap that made me partially responsible for Tyler's theft and gambling debts. I could no longer be legally or morally implicated in financial decisions I couldn't control. The most difficult part was setting up alternative support systems for Mom's legitimate needs. Despite my anger about the will and Tyler's exploitation, I couldn't simply abandon a woman facing dementia without ensuring she had proper resources. I spent an entire day researching elder care services in our county and made appointments for Mom with a social worker specializing in dementia support, a financial advisor experienced with elder financial protection, and a legal aid attorney who could help establish safeguards against future exploitation. Mrs. Thompson will come to your house next Wednesday. I explained to Mom during one of our final financial planning conversations. She's a licensed social worker who helps families navigate dementia care options. She can connect you with meal delivery services, transportation assistance, and medical support coordination. Mom's reaction was a mixture of fear and resentment. I don't need strangers in my house telling me how to live. You're my daughter. Taking care of me is your responsibility. No, Mom. Taking care of yourself is your responsibility. Getting appropriate professional help for a medical condition is your responsibility. My responsibility is to make sure you know what resources are available, not to provide them personally at the expense of my own well-being. Tyler's response to losing his financial safety net was predictably chaotic. Within a week of my announcement, he was scrambling to find employment for the first time in months. His job applications were half-hearted attempts that resulted in immediate rejections because he lacked basic work skills like arriving on time, dressing appropriately, and communicating professionally. "This is your fault," he accused me during one of his increasingly frantic phone calls. "I can't find work because you're sabotaging my references." Tyler, I haven't contacted any of your potential employers. Maybe the problem is that you're 28 years old with a resume showing 6 job terminations and 8 months of unemployment. I need more time to get established. You can't just cut us off. I've been giving you more time for 10 years. How much time do you need? Meanwhile, I was discovering what life felt like without the constant drain of supporting 2 adults who refused to take responsibility for themselves. With an extra $2,300 per month staying in my own bank account, I was able to pay off my credit card debt within 6 weeks and start building an emergency fund for the first time since Dad died. More importantly, I enrolled in evening classes at the community college to finish my nursing degree. The program allowed working adults to complete coursework part-time over 3 years, with clinical rotations scheduled around employment commitments. Walking into my first anatomy and physiology class 13 years after dropping out felt like reclaiming a part of myself I had forgotten existed. I also joined a support group for adult children of dysfunctional families that met every Thursday evening at the community center. Hearing other people's stories helped me understand that my situation wasn't unique or shameful. Families all over the country struggled with similar patterns of enabling manipulation and misplaced loyalty. The hardest part is accepting that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, said Patricia, a woman whose story mirrored mine, except her enabling had focused on a drug-addicted sister instead of an irresponsible brother. We tell ourselves we're helping, but we're actually preventing them from experiencing the natural consequences that might motivate change. As the weeks passed, Tyler's girlfriend Sarah finally reached her breaking point with his irresponsible behavior. She had been dating him for 8 months, initially attracted to his charm and sense of humor, but gradually recognizing the pattern of lies, financial manipulation, and emotional immaturity that defined his relationships. The final incident occurred when Tyler asked to borrow her car for a job interview, then returned it 6 hours later with an empty gas tank and a dent in the rear bumper. When Sarah asked what happened, Tyler claimed someone hit her car in the parking lot and drove away, leaving no contact information. Sarah later discovered Tyler had never gone to a job interview at all. Security cameras at the casino showed him spending the afternoon gambling with cash he had borrowed from her purse while she was at work. The car damage occurred when he backed into a concrete barrier in the casino parking garage while intoxicated. "I can't do this anymore," Sarah told Tyler when she came to collect her belongings from Mom's house. "You lie about everything. You steal money from people who care about you. You take no responsibility for anything that goes wrong in your life. I deserve better than this." Tyler's response was to blame me for poisoning Sarah against him and creating financial pressure that forced him to make desperate choices. Even when facing the natural consequences of his own actions, he remained incapable of accepting responsibility or recognizing how his behavior affected other people. With Sarah gone and my financial support withdrawn, Tyler was finally experiencing what life felt like when his choices had real consequences. Mom, meanwhile, was discovering what it meant to manage a household budget without my supplemental income covering the shortfalls created by Tyler's spending. The crisis came 6 weeks after I had stopped my financial contributions. Mom called me on a Tuesday evening, her voice shaking with panic. "Cassandra, Tyler is gone. He took my jewelry and emptied my savings account. I can't reach him, and the police said I have to wait 24 hours to file a missing person report." "What do you mean he took your jewelry?" "My wedding ring, your grandmother's pearl necklace, the diamond earrings your father gave me for our anniversary. Everything valuable is missing from my bedroom, and he transferred the last $800 from my savings account yesterday morning." The police report filed the next day revealed that Tyler had fled to Nevada with his ex-girlfriend Maria, someone he had dated 2 years earlier, before cheating on her with 3 different women. Security camera footage from the bus station showed them boarding a Greyhound headed for Las Vegas with luggage and several small boxes that likely contained Mom's stolen jewelry. For the first time in Tyler's adult life, his actions had consequences he couldn't charm or manipulate his way out of. No family member was available to bail him out, make excuses for his behavior, or provide money to solve the problems he had created. The woman who had spent decades protecting him from the natural results of his choices was finally forced to confront the reality that her son was a thief who would exploit anyone, including his own mother, to fund his self-destructive impulses. The phone call came exactly 1 month after I had implemented my new boundaries. It was a Tuesday evening, and I was studying for my microbiology exam when my phone rang. Mom's name appeared on the caller ID, and for a moment, I considered not answering. Our conversations had become increasingly difficult as the financial pressure mounted and Tyler's behavior escalated. But I answered, and the first words out of her mouth confirmed everything I had learned about our family dynamics. "Where's my money?" Not "hello," not "how are you doing?" Not, "I miss talking to you," just a demand for financial resources delivered with the entitlement of someone who had never questioned their right to my paycheck. "Hello, Mom. I'm doing well, thank you for asking. How are you?" "Don't give me that attitude, Cassandra. You know perfectly well why I'm calling. The mortgage payment is due in 3 days, and I don't have the money. Where's my money?" The phrase, "my money," was telling. In Mom's mind, my income had become her resource, something she could expect and demand without gratitude or reciprocity. The idea that I had a right to keep my own earnings for my own needs was apparently incomprehensible. "Mom, it's your money, not mine. You'll need to figure out how to pay your own bills." "How am I supposed to do that?" "You know I can't afford the house payments without help." "Then maybe it's time to consider selling the house and finding something more affordable." The silence on the other end of the line lasted nearly 30 seconds. When Mom finally spoke, her voice was filled with outrage. "You want me to give up my home? The house your father and I worked our whole lives to pay for. You want me to lose everything because you're being selfish." "Mom, you're not losing everything because I'm being selfish. You're losing everything because Tyler stole from you and you enabled it. You're facing foreclosure because you chose to protect someone who was exploiting you instead of addressing the real problem. Tyler made some mistakes, but he's family. Family forgives family. Family also protects family from harm. You didn't protect yourself, and you didn't protect me from being exploited to fund his gambling addiction." The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Mom cycling through guilt, anger, manipulation, and desperation as she tried every emotional tactic that had worked in the past to secure my financial compliance. But for the first time in 13 years, I held firm. The reality of Mom's situation was becoming clear to everyone in her social circle. Mrs. Patterson, the elder care social worker I had connected her with, was now visiting twice weekly to help navigate the practical challenges of living with dementia while managing financial crisis. "Your mother is struggling to accept that her son's behavior constituted theft and fraud," Mrs. Patterson explained during a phone consultation. "It's common for parents to minimize their adult children's destructive actions, especially when acknowledging the truth would require admitting they enabled the behavior for years." Mrs. Patterson had helped Mom apply for emergency financial assistance through county elder services and was working with the bank to negotiate a mortgage modification that might prevent immediate foreclosure. But these were temporary measures that addressed symptoms rather than the underlying problem. The real breakthrough came when Detective Rodriguez from the Fraud Division contacted Mom about Tyler's activities. The investigation that began with Mom's initial police report about the stolen jewelry had uncovered a much more extensive pattern of financial crimes. "Mrs. Johnson, we've arrested your son in Las Vegas on multiple charges related to identity theft and elder fraud," Detective Rodriguez explained during his visit to Mom's house. "The evidence suggests he used your personal information to open credit accounts in your name over a period of approximately 3 years. The scope of Tyler's deception was staggering. Beyond the forged checks and stolen jewelry, he had opened 4 credit cards using Mom's social security number and address. The total fraudulent debt exceeded $22,000, all of it accumulated to fund casino visits, online gambling accounts, and cash advances that supported his lifestyle while unemployed. Your son wasn't just taking money impulsively, Detective Rodriguez continued. This was a calculated long-term scheme to exploit your financial resources and credit rating. The pattern suggests he began planning this fraud shortly after learning about your dementia diagnosis. Mom's reaction was heartbreaking to witness. The woman who had spent decades making excuses for Tyler's behavior was finally confronted with evidence that her beloved son had systematically stolen her identity and destroyed her financial security while pretending to care for her. "But he promised he would pay everything back," she whispered. "He said he just needed time to get on his feet." Mrs. Johnson, your son spent over $3,000 at casinos in the past month alone. None of this money was used for job searching or establishing independence. It was all spent on gambling. The detective's report included transaction records that painted a clear picture of Tyler's priorities. While Mom worried about mortgage payments and utility bills, Tyler had been spending hundreds of dollars weekly on slot machines, poker games, and online sports betting. Every emergency that had prompted Mom to ask me for extra financial help had been manufactured to cover Tyler's gambling losses. The investigation also revealed that Tyler's disappearance with Maria hadn't been impulsive. They had been planning the move to Nevada for weeks, researching which of Mom's possessions would be most valuable to sell and coordinating their departure to coincide with Mom's monthly Social Security deposit hitting her bank account. We recovered some of your jewelry from a pawn shop in Las Vegas, Detective Rodriguez said. Your son sold your wedding ring and pearl necklace for $800, which he lost at a casino the same night. For the first time since Dad's death, Mom was forced to see Tyler clearly, not as a troubled young man who needed patience and support, but as an adult who had made deliberate choices to harm the people who loved him. The realization that her unwavering loyalty had been met with calculated exploitation was devastating. But it was also liberating. As the full scope of Tyler's betrayal became clear, Mom began to understand why I had removed myself from the situation. For years, she had viewed my boundaries as abandonment and selfishness. Now, she could see them as self-protection against systematic abuse. I don't understand how I raised someone capable of this, she said during one of our first honest conversations in years. I thought I was being a good mother by supporting him. You were trying to be a good mother, I replied, but supporting someone and enabling their destructive behavior are different things. Love without boundaries becomes exploitation. The legal consequences for Tyler were swift and severe. The state of Nevada charged him with elder fraud, identity theft, and interstate transportation of stolen goods. His criminal history of employment terminations and previous arrests for drunk driving worked against him during sentencing discussions. Your brother is looking at 2 to 5 years in state prison, Mom's attorney explained. The prosecutor is treating this as a case of vulnerable adult abuse because of your mother's dementia diagnosis. For a woman who had spent decades protecting Tyler from consequences, the reality that he would face serious legal penalties for his actions was both shocking and strangely relieving. For the first time, someone besides me was holding him accountable for his choices. The foreclosure proceedings moved forward despite Mrs. Patterson's best efforts to negotiate alternative arrangements. Mom's mortgage was 3 months behind, and the fraudulent credit card debt in her name had destroyed her credit rating beyond repair. Even with Tyler facing criminal charges, the financial damage he had inflicted couldn't be reversed quickly enough to save the house. I'm going to lose everything, Mom said during one of our weekly phone calls. Her voice carried a resignation I had never heard before, as if she was finally accepting the reality of her situation instead of expecting someone else to solve her problems. Not everything, Mom. You're going to lose the house, but you still have your Social Security income and Medicare benefits. Mrs. Patterson found you a spot in Pine Valley Assisted Living, and it's specifically designed for people with early-stage dementia. I never thought I'd end up in one of those places. It's not what you planned, but it might be better than struggling alone in a house you can't afford to maintain. The move to Pine Valley was emotionally difficult, but practically necessary. Mom's dementia symptoms were progressing slowly but noticeably, and living alone in a large house with mounting financial pressures was becoming dangerous. She had forgotten to pay the electric bill twice, left the stove on overnight, and gotten lost driving to the grocery store she had shopped at for 15 years. Pine Valley offered structured support that allowed residents to maintain independence while providing safety nets for cognitive decline. Mom would have her own small apartment with a kitchenette, access to meals and social activities, and medical staff available 24 hours daily. I helped her pack and move, a process that forced both of us to confront how much our relationship had changed. For the first time in 13 years, I was helping her as a daughter rather than as a financial caretaker. The difference in our dynamic was immediate and noticeable. "I'm sorry," Mom said as we sorted through Dad's belongings in the bedroom they had shared for 30 years. "I'm sorry I took advantage of your generosity. I'm sorry I enabled Tyler's behavior instead of protecting you from it." The apology was something I had never expected to hear. Mom's ability to acknowledge her mistakes seemed to be improving as Tyler's influence was removed from her daily life, and she was forced to confront the reality of what their relationship had actually been. "I convinced myself that supporting Tyler was the loving thing to do," she continued, "but I can see now that it hurt all of us. It hurt you because I treated your hard work and sacrifice like it was owed to me. It hurt Tyler because he never learned to take care of himself. And it hurt me because I enabled someone to steal my security and independence." The conversation marked the beginning of genuine healing between us. For the first time since Dad's death, Mom was taking responsibility for her choices instead of expecting me to manage the consequences. The woman who had guilt-tripped me for setting boundaries was finally understanding why those boundaries had been necessary. Meanwhile, my own life was flourishing in ways I hadn't experienced since college. My grades in the nursing program were excellent with a 3.7 GPA that placed me on the dean's list both semesters. The professors consistently praised my work ethic and maturity qualities that had been shaped by years of managing crisis and responsibility. More significantly, I was developing a social life that wasn't centered around family dysfunction. My study group included 3 other adult learners returning to school after life changes, and we had become genuinely supportive friends. One of them, Marcus, was a 32-year-old divorced father, completing a degree in respiratory therapy after leaving his career in retail management. Marcus and I started studying together for our shared anatomy class, but the relationship gradually evolved into something deeper. He had his own experience with family boundary issues, having spent years enabling his ex-wife's shopping addiction before recognizing that his help was actually making her problems worse. "The hardest thing about setting boundaries," Marcus said during one of our coffee shop study sessions, "is accepting that some people will be angry at you for refusing to participate in dysfunction, but their anger doesn't mean you're wrong." His understanding of family dynamics without judgment or pressure to reconcile with toxic relationships was refreshing. For the first time in years, I was dating someone who respected my choices rather than trying to convince me that family obligation should override personal well-being. Tyler's criminal trial proceeded without surprises. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and his attorney negotiated a plea agreement that resulted in a 2-year prison sentence, followed by 3 years of probation. The restitution order required him to repay the fraudulent credit card debt and the value of the stolen jewelry. But everyone understood that collection would be unlikely given his employment history and lack of assets. "Your son will be eligible for work release programs after serving 18 months, the prosecutor explained to Mom, "but he'll be prohibited from contacting you directly or visiting your residence without court supervision for the duration of his probation." The legal protection was necessary, but sad. Mom was finally safe from Tyler's exploitation, but the cost was complete estrangement from the child she had devoted her life to protecting. The irony wasn't lost on either of us that her unconditional support had ultimately destroyed their relationship more completely than honest boundaries ever could have. The most surprising development came 6 months after Mom moved to Pine Valley. Her attorney contacted me about a legal document I hadn't expected. "Your mother has updated her will and also established a life insurance policy beneficiary change," he explained during our phone conversation. "She asked me to inform you about both changes." The new will split Mom's remaining assets equally between Tyler and me, a significant change from the previous version that had left everything to Tyler. But more importantly, she had purchased a life insurance policy worth $125,000 and named me as the sole beneficiary. The accompanying letter she had written explained her reasoning in words that showed genuine understanding of what our family dynamic had been and what she hoped it could become. That Cassandra, I know that changing my will doesn't undo the years of unfairness or repay the money you contributed to holding our family together, but I want you to know that I finally understand the difference between loving someone and enabling their destruction. You tried to teach me that lesson for years, and I refused to learn it until the consequences became unavoidable. I hope the insurance money can help you build the life you sacrificed to take care of us. You deserve every happiness that your father and I dreamed for you when you were born. The letter was the closest thing to complete accountability I had ever received from a family member. Mom's willingness to acknowledge specifically how her choices had harmed me while taking full responsibility for the consequences was healing in a way I hadn't expected. 2 years later, I stood in my cap and gown at the community college graduation ceremony holding my associate degree in nursing with highest honors. The accomplishment felt surreal after 13 years of believing I would never return to school or pursue the career I had always wanted. Mom sat in the family section beaming with genuine pride as my name was called. Her dementia symptoms had stabilized with proper medical care and a structured living environment, and our relationship had evolved into something healthier than it had ever been during my childhood. "I'm so proud of you," she said after the ceremony, tears streaming down her face. "Your father would be so proud too. You never gave up on your dreams, even when we made it almost impossible for you to pursue them." Tyler had been released from prison 6 months earlier, but he remained in Nevada on parole supervision. We had no direct contact, and Mom's conversations with him were limited to brief phone calls every few weeks. He was working at a warehouse and living in a halfway house, apparently making some effort to rebuild his life without exploiting family members for financial support. "He asks about you sometimes," Mom told me. "I think he finally understands what he lost when he chose stealing over honesty. Maybe he'll figure out how to build genuine relationships based on mutual respect," I replied, "but that's something he has to choose for himself." My nursing career began in the pediatric oncology ward at the Regional Medical Center, exactly the specialty I had dreamed of pursuing 13 years earlier. Working with children facing serious illness and their families felt like the perfect application of the empathy and resilience I had developed through my own family struggles. The emotional demands of caring for sick children were intense, but they were matched by the profound satisfaction of using my skills to provide genuine help rather than enabling dysfunction. Every shift reminded me of the difference between supporting someone through legitimate crisis versus feeding patterns of irresponsibility and manipulation. Marcus and I had been engaged for 6 months with wedding plans that reflected our shared understanding of healthy relationships. Our partnership was built on mutual respect, clear communication, and boundaries that protected rather than harmed both individuals and the relationship itself. "I love that you're strong enough to stand up for yourself," Marcus said during one of our conversations about family dynamics. "I never have to worry about losing myself in this relationship because I know you won't lose yourself either." Mom's life at Pine Valley had settled into a routine that provided the structure and social connection she needed as her cognitive abilities gradually declined. She had made friends among the other residents, participated in art therapy and book clubs, and seemed more content than she had been in years. "I wish I could go back and do things differently," she said during one of my weekly visits. "I wish I had taught Tyler responsibility instead of rescuing him from consequences. I wish I had appreciated your contributions instead of taking them for granted. Most of all, I wish I had understood that real love means wanting the best for someone even when they're angry at you for setting boundaries." Her transformation was genuine but incomplete. Mom would always struggle with the tendency to make excuses for irresponsible behavior and avoid difficult conversations about accountability. But she had learned to recognize these patterns and consciously choose different responses. The financial recovery had taken time but was finally complete. With 2 years of nursing income and no family financial obligations, I had established an emergency fund, contributed regularly to retirement savings, and purchased a small house in a quiet neighborhood near the hospital. The house represented something I had never had before, a space that belonged entirely to me, where my choices determined how resources were used, and my energy was directed toward my own goals rather than managing other people's crises. Standing in my own kitchen on a Sunday morning, reading the newspaper and drinking coffee without being interrupted by crisis phone calls or guilt-inducing requests for money, I understood what peace felt like for the first time in my adult life. The most important lesson I learned through this experience wasn't about money or family dynamics, though both were crucial elements. The deepest lesson was about the difference between love and enabling, between helping and harming, between sacrifice and self-destruction. I had spent 13 years believing that love meant giving endlessly without expecting anything in return, that good daughters sacrificed their own well-being for family harmony, that setting boundaries was selfish and cruel. Everything I had been taught about family loyalty was built on the assumption that love should be unconditional and support should be unlimited. But I learned that love without respect is manipulation, and that unconditional support for destructive behavior isn't love at all. Real love sometimes requires saying no, setting limits, and allowing people to experience the natural consequences of their choices. The greatest gift I ultimately gave my family wasn't my money or my time. It was showing them the difference between enabling and loving, between supporting and rescuing, between helping someone and preventing them from learning to help themselves. Setting boundaries wasn't cruel or abandonment. It was the foundation of genuine relationships where each person takes responsibility for their own life while choosing to share that life with others in healthy, reciprocal ways. Sometimes walking away teaches people your true value better than any amount of sacrifice ever could. The people who love you will respect your boundaries and work to deserve your presence in their lives. The people who only value what you provide for them will be angry when you stop providing it, which tells you everything you need to know about what the relationship was actually based on. Family isn't just shared DNA. Real family protects and uplifts each other, celebrates each other's successes, and refuses to exploit each other's love. Anything else is just blood relatives with toxic patterns attached. I learned that you can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved, and that trying to rescue someone from the consequences of their choices actually prevents them from developing the skills and motivation they need to rescue themselves. Most importantly, I learned that my life has value independent of what I can provide for other people. My dreams matter. My well-being matters. My future matters. Taking care of myself isn't selfish. It's the foundation that makes genuine care for others possible. The woman who once believed she owed endless sacrifice to prove her love now understands that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, clear boundaries, and the understanding that each person is responsible for their own choices and their own life. Looking back, I can see that every difficult moment, every painful decision, and every relationship that had to change was necessary to create the life I'm living now. A life where my energy goes toward building rather than fixing, where my love is reciprocated rather than exploited, and where my value isn't measured by how much I can give up for other people's benefit. That's the gift I want to leave with anyone who might be facing similar choices. Your life matters. Your dreams matter. Your well-being matters. Don't sacrifice yourself trying to save someone who isn't trying to save themselves. Love them enough to let them experience the natural consequences that might motivate them to change, and love yourself enough to build boundaries that protect your ability to thrive. Real family will respect those boundaries. Everyone else is just showing you who they really are and what your relationship was actually worth to them. Both kinds of information are valuable even when they're painful to receive. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where family loyalty conflicted with your own well-being? How do you balance supporting loved ones with protecting yourself from being taken advantage of? I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like and share it with someone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of healthy boundaries. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories about finding strength through life's challenges and building relationships based on mutual respect rather than one-sided sacrifice. Your support means everything, and I'm grateful to share this journey of growth and healing with all of you. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve relationships that celebrate your strength, not relationships that exploit your willingness to sacrifice yourself for others. Here's to choosing love that uplifts rather than diminishes, and to building families based on respect rather than obligation.